you still believe that Russia-Ukraine is the most important
Yes.
geopolitical conflict out there. Talk for a couple minutes about where you think it is and where it's going.
I mean, basically, if Russia is allowed to win, that's the end of the global order as we have known it for decades. The most fundamental rule was that you cannot just invade and conquer and annex another country, neighboring country, just because you're stronger. This was the case for centuries, for thousands of years. It was not the case. If we talked earlier about state budgets, the reason the average expenditure on the military went down from 50% to 7% and released all these resources to healthcare and education and so forth is because most people, most countries felt that they're safe. That even if they have a strong neighbor, it's just not done anymore. Maybe there'll be some kind of border clash or whatever, but the idea that the neighbors will just invade us, conquer us, and annex our country, it's just not done. And this is exactly what Putin is trying to do in Ukraine. I mean, people talk about imperialism. They forgot what imperialism means. Originally, imperialism in the Roman sense, in the Ottoman sense, in the Mongol sense, is that you invade a neighboring country and just conquer and annex it. It's not cultural imperialism. This is imperialism. People forgot because it wasn't done for quite some time. And this is exactly what Putin is trying to do. The question is, does anything defend any country around the world except brute military force? And if the answer is no, then we will see military budgets everywhere skyrocket, and more military alliances, and more wars. Because we know the cycle. I mean, you want to make yourself safer, the neighbors feel more frightened, and this is what we've been through for centuries. We only understand the meaning of historical events with hindsight. And there is a scenario that we are already living in the midst of the Third World War, and we just don't know it. You know, if you think about the Second World War, so today any school kid knows that it started on the 1st of September 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. But if you ask people, let's say in May 1941, people in New York, people in Stalingrad, people in Hiroshima, it's not World War III. Yeah. Yes, there is a conflict in Europe, there are some conflicts in Asia, but it's not World War III. Only with hindsight we say, oh yeah, this is when it started. We could already be in the midst of World War III, that started on the 24th of February, 2022, and with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we just don't know it yet.
Now, why hasn't it brought together? I mean, NATO is stronger today than it was in 2022, that's clear, but it hasn't brought together left and right across the US and Europe. Why not?
I'm not sure. I'm not an expert, on the political dynamics within the United States, within Europe. What you do see, very worrying, is a trend in many countries, in the US, also in my country, of the kind of suicide of conservative parties. For many generations, the democratic game was a kind of double act of conservatives and progressives, like a car with the brakes and the fuel pedal. You press this, you press that, you change, going too fast, going too slow. And suddenly, conservative parties all over the world are committing suicide and turning into radical revolutionary parties. That the basic idea of conservatism is to conserve institutions, to conserve traditions. It's the progressive who say, let's move faster, let's change things, let's destroy institutions. And the conservative says, no, let's calm down. We don't understand the world very well. You think this institution should be destroyed, but actually it's important. And now the ones who are trying to destroy institutions and traditions are the conservatives. And it becomes the job of progressives to protect and conserve institutions and traditions. And they're not good at it, because this is not their job. I mean, they are the ones who are supposed to press forward all the time. And I don't really know why it's happening, but you think about, for instance, the 6th of January. And the kind of the mythological moment of the conservative philosophy is the storming of the Bastille. When Burke says, this is a bad idea, it will end badly. And this is kind of the creation story of conservatism. And on the 6th of January, you have all these conservatives cheering the storming of the Bastille. So, again, the progressives are basically doing what they've been doing for decades. What I don't understand is this kind of self-immolation of conservative parties. And again, in the US, you can try and explain it in all kinds of local dynamics. But because you see it in more and more places around the world,
but if I wanted to take the MAGA position, right, which is in New York, so it's hard to do. But you have a lot of people that are saying, well, you supported globalization, and it hollowed out our working class, our middle class. You supported all of this automation, but what about like the way we used to live? You allowed all this immigration, but who are we? So many of them would argue that conservatism is trying to like focus on the historic values.
But why, perfectly okay, why the attack on institutions? Why the attack on the institution of the elections? Why the attack on all the civil servants as deep state? This is not conservative.
If you believe those institutions no longer reflect or support the people or the values,
then you become revolutionary. Yes, again, this is the narrative.
That's the narrative.
That's the narrative. We can argue it's true, it's not true. I'm just making an observation. This is a revolutionary narrative. It's a narrative saying all the institutions, or most of the institutions of the country are dysfunctional. We need to destroy them and start from scratch. This is the French Revolution. This is the Bolshevik Revolution. This is not conservatism. So you can say it's still true. We still need to do it. But and the other thing I would say is about this narrative of globalization. Maybe it's true of the US, but what about Brazil? What about India? What about Poland? There's so many countries that benefited from globalization, and you still see analogous processes. So I think globalization and the impact on the job market, it's an easy solution, but it doesn't cover what we see globally.